Welcome back to my channel. So this is a video that I have been working on for a while. And that's because I actually created, let me see, it's gonna fall. One of my creations, which is right here. It's another warrior loincloth. And yeah, trying to figure out how to film this sucker was interesting to say the very least. And I ended up having to cut through a lot. Well, it wasn't on purpose. That's because I forgot that I was filming it. I got so into it that I'm just like, yeah, we'll see how it gets to the end. Okay. Hope you guys enjoy it. Bye. Well, hello. Welcome back to my channel. I guess I should start by saying, hopefully this will work. What I am trying to do is, whoa, excuse me, film my process of a new idea I have for my loincloths. So, hello. We shall see if this works. I got most of my materials out already, prepped to start putting my patterns in the fabric and cutting away. Now, I've made my own patterns. I like to use, stock paper and so forth. This is one of the ones I've made. This is another. And all of my patterns include the seam allowance already. So I don't have to worry about adding extra fabric to it because all the seam allowances are included. And this is another. Those are for basically different size flaps that I use in my different loincloths. Now I've made patterns for everything that I've made. This is actually one of the patterns that I have made for one of my jock straps. Kind of like Mickey Mouse ears, but it actually works really well. Now for the jockstrap patterns, I went through many trial and errors. This was actually one of the first ones I ever made, which was a joke. It actually worked for something else though. It works for a section of a jockstrap of a particular style. Not necessarily. Well, yeah, it is a jockstrap. But yeah, when my first prototype for this one, this was very shallow. This was another one of those prototypes. It kind of worked out, not necessarily that well, but these are all basically different patterns I have made for the jock straps. Some I still use. This is for different. Forgot the name of them. But basically, these are a sock. That's what it is. This is for a sock. This is basically for well, I guess it would be considered a jock strap as well, but this is basically for a pouch. And I just used the one, it's just one single sheet, unlike this one that opens up. Just put the left or front and right or back. I make sure everything's labeled because otherwise, you all know I have a bubble head and I will forget about all of it. This is a pattern for a waistband, as well as this. They're different sizes by just centimeters. And this allows me to remember front or back. This is another waistband pattern that I made. So yeah, drafting patterns is very tedious work because it does involve a lot of measuring and oh yeah. But the best thing about patterns is when you make your own patterns is it's your design altogether. Oh, and I also have a pattern from when I used to do bibs. So never getting rid of this one because I use this a lot to make bibs as gifts for baby showers and so forth. But yeah, back to the flaps. This is the largest flap I have. I'm thinking I might be using this one as opposed. Actually, I'm probably going to use these two, not this one. This one might be for the front, and this one might be for the back. I always choose the narrower strip in the back. Again, my loincloths are not for the meek, and my gay boys enjoy them. So, because they show just enough. I haven't figured out yet the length of the one in the back. I know the one in the front, it isn't going to be this whole length. It's probably going to be cut down this length because the one in the back is always usually longer. And one of the main reasons why the back length flap is a lot longer is because you have to give allowances for the curve of the buttocks. Because otherwise, if they're the same length, the back one would probably end up lifting, so you lose a lot of the symmetry. Now, a lot of the times, I sometimes even make the back one extra long, so it gives that extra length in the back. But we'll see what happens because I really don't plan these out that well. I always tend to just have a general idea as to what I'm doing. I get my patterns or I draft a new pattern, and once that's done, the rest I just wing because it's all in my head, and you all know how my head works. Usually doesn't. So now I'm thinking of going with my black faux leather, which is this right here. It's a beautiful textured vinyl, and it even has the smell of leather, but it is amazing. Like the things they do now with like the faux leather, it's amazing. And I'm thinking of using this fabric as the lining for the flaps and everything else. So not sure yet. I might actually go with minky dots rather, which is that fabric that they use now for all of the baby blankets and all of that, because it's super soft. This is actually rather soft as well. I always try to look for fabrics that are soft to line with and are thick enough so that it doesn't cause any chafing, because a lot of this the loincloths that I have and make are usually worn without anything. I also have my fabric shears, and I use my chalks to outline into the fabric. And of course, I use my giant art clipboard to do everything else on. So, we shall see how this goes. As you can see, I've used this fabric quite a lot. I tend to try to cut everything to save as much fabric as I can so that I have very little waste. And I'm going to end up cutting this off and just storing it with the rest of my cabbage. Because usually you find you could, your spare pieces, also known as cabbage, you find that you can actually use some of the cabbage to either sew it together to create something completely different and unique, or you can use it as patchwork or add-ons to other projects, or even the same project you're working on now. So let's begin with the simple lining. And you always do all of your sketching of the pattern on the fabric on the opposite or the inside of the fabric. Not the fabric that's going to show, but in the back. Because you do not want your fabric to cause any more Okay, so I'm thinking of making this one, both of them the same size actually. Well, as in the width. Now I'm going to make the front. So this would be the back. And this is going to be the front. And with that done, I am going to make sure that my lines are actually straight across. There we go. And that is basically the two flaps that are going to go in the front and in the back. Now, I have an idea as to what's going to go. Well, you'll see. You will see. This is the easy part. Because all you're doing is cutting along the lines. And the best part, like when you do these, that you end up with like this perfectly triangular little pieces. They will definitely be used. For sure. I always end up using them for one reason or another. I had a bag of small little cabbage pieces like this once, and I ended up well, basically sewing them all together, different fabrics, kind of like a quilt, and I ended up making this amazing looking loincloth, which I ended up getting a lot of requests for now, because as I mentioned before, yes, I use a pattern for certain things, but the actual design, I have a general idea of it in my head, and I do not know well, how it's going to work out at the end, because I always end up changing things around. So, yeah, we'll see how it goes. But, so all of my designs are all one of a kind. Even if I make one that's similar, it will never be the same as the original. And everybody knows that. Everybody that has ever purchased any of my stuff or has received one as a gift knows that I will not be able to duplicate it, which tends to, people tend to like that a lot more, because they will not see themselves coming as they're going, you know? One of a kind is one of a kind. So, done with the flaps. I will be adding another, I guess, flap on top of this. A more squarish one. But I haven't decided the size yet. So, again, this is just the preliminary steps. So I'm done with this. And what I also do, since I have no need of this anymore, because I have to make the same again with the lining. But with the lining, I will actually use the flaps themselves that I have just cut. And I will try. The problem with this fabric I'm trying to cut it along the grain of the fabric, so that it makes it easier to handle. But fabric tends to move and shift in the worst possible ways. And I am not going to use the edge here. I am actually going to try to use the actual lines in the grain to line it up with. And it is going to come out, obviously, a larger size than the original, for that reason that I'm using the actual cutout as my pattern. That works for me as well, because when I start pinning it together, this fabric will pin better than this one, giving me allowances to play with it. And just as an FYI, I hate making patterns. Back in school, I used to love algebra and geometry until I had one of the worst teachers ever who killed my love of math. So now I'm like, ugh, really? We're gonna work with math? But I'm glad I actually enjoyed the classes that I did when I did, because that does help with pattern making. Greatly. Believe it or not. Sorry for the silence, but I'm trying to think of the actual flap that's gonna go on top of these. So you're actually gonna be able to see how my brain works in its own twisted way to achieve a goal. Now, these are the easy parts. I have done so far. So we'll see what happens next. Oh my goodness. Well, as you can see, I started pinning the fabrics together already. Now, normally and logically, you would have all of your pieces cut out so you can start working on assembling them this way. Assembling them, front fabrics together and back fabrics out, because everything gets sewn backwards. Basically, they're preliminary sew. Everything gets sewn backwards. Once it's sewn around the edges, it gets flipped inside out. So the sides of the fabrics you want showing will actually show up in your finished product. Now, arguably, and logically again, this side of the fabric would be the front fabric. But I don't want, it's got some texture to it. I don't want that. And it seems to be a lot brighter. The back side is a lot more muted and it's a lot more smoother, which works better for the purposes, or my purposes, in using this as a lining. And it's also softer, a lot softer. So this works incredibly well for that. And like I said, logically, you would end up cutting all of your pieces together before you end up doing any of this. Once all of your components have been cut out, you end up assembling them, as I'm doing here, putting them together. So you can just go to the machine, sewing machine, and sew everything all at once. But again, because I really have no idea what exactly, no concrete idea rather, of how this is all going to come about. I have a general idea as to what the design is. I have a general idea as to what embellishment I might add, but I have no idea of anything concrete as of yet. So with that, for that reason, I'm going to sew probably these first, or just leave them pinned and see what what comes up for the flap that's going to go on top of this, to add a little more weight as well and keep it down a little further, a little more, because sometimes the wind, or when you're walking, yeah, you'll have a Marilyn Monroe moment. And some guys like that, others do not. So we'll see what happens. Okay, back laters. Well, what I decided to do instead was I didn't just sew the pieces that I had already cut. These, I didn't just sew them. What I did was basically cut out all of the other pieces which I was going to need, so I could have all of the components ready. And this is the flap that's going to go. And I apologize for the light, natural light reflecting off everything else. But I don't know if you can see right here that I actually already measured out how the design's going to go in the front flap. And it's not going to be a solid flap, actually. You'll see what's going to happen once I do that. So what I'm going to do now is basically just sew the pieces together. Once the pieces are sewn together, I will add a few embellishments to a few of them, which you will see. And let's see what happens here, shall we? Let me see what happens once I start sewing, because it's going to be a bit of a chore. Well, not really a chore. You'll see. Okay. Here we go. Whoop. First of all, forgot doing a straight stitch with a back stitch. And we just run this through the whole periphery of the garment. So we'll see what goes on. I will probably end up sewing everything else off camera, and I'll get back to you once I get everything else done, because this video is already getting way too long. So we'll see each other later. So everything is cut and everything is sewn. Everything has been sewn already, all the pieces. And I have already cut the tips off so that when I turn these outside in or inside out, they have a flatter look about them. And they don't have the bulk in the corners here, as I already did with this one. So that's in the process. That's the process I'm at now, rather. Trying to get all of this done. Flip them all to the right side. Making sure that the corners are properly edged. And we're done. Now all I need to do is add the top stitch. And I'm done with all of the components that have lining for the moment, because I am also going to embellish these. Not as much. I'm going to keep them relatively simple, but I am going to add a stitch by hand all the way around each. With the color is what I'm actually trying to figure out, what color these are going to go with, because I don't know what feathers I'm going to use, because I am going to use feathers with these on top, on the edge, to trim the top. Well, actually, I might just go with faux fur, or what is that called? That one synthetic material fur that is really, really soft, and I believe it might be gray though, or bluish gray. So again, no planning on anything, and we'll see how that goes. As for the flat ones, the square flat ones, this is pretty much the ending product, so we'll see how that goes. Yeah, continue on working and seeing how ideas come out of this. Okay. Well, as you can see, as I showed you before, I did all of the top stitching on them already. Everything's already done. Now I just need to figure out, well, these are gonna go like so on these. And as I mentioned before, I was thinking of using this microfiber fabric to add a trim right on top, but I thought better of it. I don't want to deal with that because it was gonna end up causing so much more work to do it that way. So I'm thinking of just going with the feathers and adding some brass spikes to it on this corner here, down here, and down here, on both of these. And I am actually thinking of adding two types of feathers. And I have two here that are really, really pretty. I got these years ago, and I use them in many different. I love these rooster feathers because the sheen they give off, the iridescence, it's amazing. So I was thinking of adding them like so. Adding them like so. And that way, it ties in the brass of the spikes with the brassy tones within these feathers. So we'll see how that goes. And yeah, wish me luck. Again, I only had planned for like this part. The rest is pretty much up in the air. I'll see how that goes. And yeah. See you. Wish me luck. I'm gonna try to figure it out. I'm gonna try to figure out how everything's gonna go. I'm gonna try to figure out exactly how I'm gonna work all of this. It's gonna be off camera. Again, the video's already getting way too long. So yeah, we'll see how it goes, and wish me luck. So I thought I had been filming this all along, and I had not. Because I'm a bubblehead. So right now I am actually working on the waistband. And I'm having major issues because of the feathers. But I am finding a way to work with it. I'm almost done with one. I added extra padding of fleece for the comfort of the part that's going to go closest to the skin, or that's going to be placed up against the skin. What? My mistake. There we go. And I am done with this part, with one. If I could just cut that off. I just have to clean it up a little. This is where I have to hammer in the grommets so I can use the drawstring to complete the loincloth altogether. And once I'm done with this, you end up with the finished product. Hope you guys enjoyed it.